Okay, time for page 11. If you didn't press Control S and save, you might want to go ahead and do that just to be on the safe side. So we're going to click back on PSA Timeline and press the home key to get you back to the very beginning, because at this point we're going to bring the narration in. So if you come back to your project panel and locate Breathe Narration, and one thing that you could do, and I think I have this in the instructions and skipped it, would be to put all of your media files together. So if you click the sort icons button here, you can click on media type, and then now see all my sound files are all together in one place. So that makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Okay, so I've got my Breathe Narration here. We're going to drag this into Audio 2. So I'm going to drag it into Audio 2 and drop it. And if you zoom all the way up at the end, what you'll see is my talking, well, it's quiet at the end, but it went a little bit past the 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds and 20 frames. Well, we don't want that. So we're just going to pull that right edge in. And you could come down here and press your down arrow to make it line up, to make it easier. But we're just going to pull that edge in to basically trim that audio off so that it doesn't last longer than our 30 seconds. Okay. So this is narration. This is just me talking, saying a bunch of random stuff that I made up for this little project. And, you know, you've got the talking going on, and you've also got the music playing in the background. So lots of things happening now. Now, you might want to pause me and listen to the music with the talking so you can see what's going on, but I'm just going to let that go because that's kind of weird on video to hear both. We are going to add some sound effects, and all the sound effects are way too long. So got all these, and the sources are on the first page of the handout, so you can see where I got them. Many of the things from this are from Pexels, which is free, open source. You're allowed to use and redistribute as long as you give them credit, and so that credit is in there. Let's go ahead and grab some thunder and rain. So what we're going to do is come over here and double click. So just like we pre-edited video, you can pre-edit audio. So I'm going to just double click it. Comes up in the source monitor. Notice you can see you see where the big loud part is, right? It's right there at the beginning. That's the thunder. So you can see the waveform there. What we're going to do, though, is we want 10 seconds. We just want a 10-second segment. I'm just going to take the first 10 seconds because that's pretty easy. So I'm just going to scoot over to 10. Right there. My mouse is just rolling like crazy right now. Okay, and I'm going to set an out point. So that means I'm only going to get those 10 seconds, and then I'm just going to drag the audio. And audio only is the only thing we have here, so video is grayed out because it is an audio clip. Now we're going to drag that to the beginning of the sequence on audio 1. So I'm just going to drag this all the way to the beginning, take the sound effect, we're going to put it right from the very beginning on audio 1. And that's because the thunder sound doesn't really happen until we get to the switch. So it kind of happens, I'll play it real quick. So the big thunder hits during that rain one, and then it'll just provide some sort of ambient sound during the rest of this. So that works out pretty well. Okay, now let's go over to the 15-second mark of the timeline. We are going to add some birds at that 15-second mark. So there we go at 15 seconds. We're going to use 4 seconds of the birds chirping. So let's double click bird chirp. I'm just going to take the first 4 seconds again. So I'll drag over to the 4-second mark and mark it out and then drag it in. And again, I drug it into audio 1 at the 15-second mark. Okay, and what it does is basically ends with that bird's clip. So you can see the bird's clip is there, and it kind of ends when the birds go away, they stop chirping. Okay. All right, now we've added all these in our editing workspace, but we're going to switch to a specific workspace for audio called the audio workspace. So in your workspace switcher at the top, let's go ahead and click on audio. So notice you should see there's an audio button up there, and now this looks different again. Our project panel is bigger again. There's an audio mixer over here, but the big thing, I'm going to move my head over to the other side here, is now we have this essential sound panel, which is a whole different thing than what we've been using. And we're going to use this to work with sound. Now this is pretty cool because I used older versions of Premiere for years, and this was something that was added in the newer version. So having essential sound is super cool, big upgrade in the land of sound in Premiere Pro. Okay, so let's click on the Thunder Rain. That's at the very beginning of our timeline. I'll scrub over. Our Thunder Rain clip So when we click on that in Essential Sound, you'll see how it says that right there, thunder, rain, right? So we can see that. And then underneath that, there's presets. And then there's this thing called tags. So this is kind of cool. You can now assign your sound files different roles, and it can apply special effects to them for you. So notice if I go to dialogue, for instance, you can see there's a bunch of different ones, like from the telephone or from the radio. You can give it that sound. Same thing under music. You can choose to duck the music, which means like make it quieter when other things are happening. You can tag it as a special effect and use different ones here. So there's lots of really cool ones that we can do. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the preset and set it to special effect and explosion, because it's a thunder sound. So we want this to be like a really loud, obnoxious sound. So we're going to click on the preset, go to SFX, and then go to explosion. Okay, and notice what it does here. It tells you that it's doing a creative change to it, and it's giving a heavy reverb. A reverb is like an echo. So now, instead of what it was already doing, it's going to go like a little extra, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and give it a play. So now that thunder hits, but it hangs on a little longer because of that preset explosion adding that additional echo sound to it. Okay, so that's page 11. Let's go ahead and hit page 12 here because the audio section is rather short. And we're going to come and click on our birds chirping. So birds chirping, this time, instead of going to a preset, we're just going to tag this. So I'm going to click on SFX, which automatically gives it some settings. And I'm just going to turn the clip volume down. So down here where it says level, the birds are chirping kind of loud. Okay, louder than I'm talking. So I'm going to click on the level button here and just turn it down just a little bit. But just notice this is a nice, easy way to turn those down. You can also manually turn down a line if you click on the line and you press your square bracket keys on your keyboard. They're to the right of the letter P. The square bracket to the left turns the volume down. The square bracket to the right increases the volume. So you can do that without actually tagging it by using those bracket keys. All right, now let's go down and click on the narration. The narration is on audio 2, if you recall. And again, when you're clicked on it over in Essential Sound, it says breathe narration, right? So we know that's what we're clicked on. Now I want you to come to this one, and if you listen, I'm just going to come here where there's no extra sound effects. Breathe, okay? It's not really that loud. But if we go and give it this preset and we say, all right, this is dialogue and I'm a female voice, so let's balance that voice out. If I click on that, it applies all of this extra stuff. So it gives it a subtle boost and it enhances the speech on the high tones and it increases the clarity. Okay, so it does all of this fancy stuff. But now if I click back on this, breathe, way louder, very crisp and clear. Okay, so you can always make changes in here. There's one called repair. And notice if I click on repair, it has turned on the de-essing. You know how like sometimes the S's sound funny on a microphone? That's what de-essing does. So there's lots of things in here. You could manually switch any of these things. But anyway, pretty cool stuff. Number 4, now that the narration is louder, we really do need to fade out the end of the narration because you can kind of hear like, I don't know if I moved around or what, but like you can just kind of hear a bunch of like leftover sound going on here. So you could do like we did on the previous one and add keyframes. We're not going to. We're going to use a transition. So there are audio transitions that are built in. We'll get into actually using transitions the old-fashioned way in our next session. But there's a keyboard shortcut, and it's Shift and D. So if I press Shift and D, what you'll see down here is a little yellow box that says you can't read it all, but it says constant power. That is an audio transition. What it does is it fades it out, essentially. It doesn't last long enough, so I'm going to point to the left edge of that constant power with my selection arrow and line it up with that other keyframe that I put in there. And now you can see it says constant power, You're not going to notice much difference because there wasn't much happening right there.
To breathe.
But it fades that out as well, so I don't have like this loud sort of sound happening at the very end. So that's a really quick way to just fade out. It also, by the way, does put that on the beginning. So the head of the clip also fades in now when you press that Shift D, but I don't really have anything happening right there.
Sometimes.
Because I don't start talking until a little later than that, so we can just leave that alone. But you could also just click on that transition and press delete on your keyboard if you didn't want it there, and it would leave it on the tail of the clip. Okay? All right. Finally, number 6, to be able to select the music, let's go ahead and hide these keyframes because otherwise we can't click on this line. So I'm just going to double click to the right of the microphone again so I can click now on this because it wasn't letting me click while I had those keyframes open from before. So just double click on that microphone so this is collapsed down. And we're going to come over here and we're going to just tag this as music. And then you can choose, and I'm going to choose a preset for balanced background music. Now I will tell you there is a cool thing in here called duck, and you can choose ducking. It's got a little checkbox. So like if you had talking and then like long pauses of no talking where you wanted the music to get louder, but then when the talking was happening, the talking part would be, you know, loud, but the music would be quiet. You could tell it to duck. And you would tell it to like duck against audio. Like if I wanted to duck against audio, that would be the dialogue. Anything tagged dialogue, it would make the music quieter when that part happened. And you can change the sensitivity and all of this stuff. The only rule here is you have to then hit the generate keyframes button. I'm not going to do that on this one because it's not necessary, but just letting you know that that's in there. It's kind of a cool little feature that's built in that does a bunch of keyframing for you. All right, balanced background music is all I want to do to this one. And then I'm going to listen to it just to make sure it sounds okay.
In the darkness, breathe.
Okay, everything's sounding pretty good
Breathe
here.
in the possibility
Now,
of the
one thing I
future.
want you to notice is there's an audio meter here to the right. The audio meter is really important because especially if you're getting your sounds from a bunch of different sources, when all those sounds are playing, you never want your audio meter to be in the red. That means that the sound might get distorted. So you want to keep it under that 0 decibels. I'm just going to click here and watch.
What
You
you
see
will
the green,
overcome.
the yellow.
Soak in the beauty
We get a little
of the
closer, but we never hit that 0, so we're in a pretty good spot here. So that's something that you always want to do check. Now, you could click on a clip and press the G key. I'm not going to do anything with this, but I'm going to press it. You could normalize the maximum peak. So if you download something and it's like super loud, you could come here and just normalize it and say, hey, never get higher than -3 or never get higher than whatever, right? Now my peak amplitude on this one is -11, so we're fine. We don't even get anywhere close on that one. But this is a nice little way, just pressing G, to automatically do that for you, so you do not have to manually go in there and do a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to hit cancel. I'm going to press Control S and save, and that wraps up the working with audio section of this workshop.